This program was proudly brought to you by Reflex, Australia's favourite paper, and McDonald's.
Peacekeepers intensify their efforts against militias as Timorese celebrate the departure of Indonesian troops. Qantas Jumbo skids out at Bangkok Airport at Australia's winning start at the Davis Cup.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Hugh Riminton.
Good evening. It's been a day of tense street action for peacekeepers in East Timor. Australian and British troops having close brushes with militia forces. The Australians were also involved in a standoff with an Indonesian army unit, sparking claims that the UN force is being overly aggressive. Simon Boda reports. Now Simon Boda joins us from Dili. Simon, tell us more about this standoff that occurred just outside your hotel this afternoon.
It was an extremely interesting standoff, Hugh. It was a definite power play, if you like, between the Indonesian TNI troops and the Australian troops. Now, the Indonesians have been living in these barracks all through the past few weeks, few months, and today they decided they were going to move out. Now, there's intelligence received within these walls, where I am inside the compound, that petrol was being poured around the place. The immediate reaction of the Australian troops was to dispatch light armoured vehicles to the street immediately outside, and they also brought in a Black Hawk helicopter which basically circled the barracks and remained in full view of the TNI troops who were in the process of moving out. Basically it was a matter of who was strongest and who was the strongest willed and what would happen next. I guess it was quite uncomfortable for a short period of time, and it could have gone either way, but then all of a sudden the mood seemed to switch, remarkably switch. You saw the Indonesian troops making friends with the Australian troops, getting their photographs taken with the Australian troops, swapping hats with the Australian troops. And then finally they just walked away, all smiles, waving goodbye as they left.
And to scenes of considerable jubilation among the ordinary population of Dili.
Well, once the majority of troops had reached the docks, there was an amazing scene down there as well, because you had an enormous number of pro-independence East Timorese who were there watching these troops leave. The troops were marching straight by them, glaring at these pro-independence people, and on the other side of the troops was a large contingent of Australian soldiers who were watching to make certain there was no break in the peace, doing what they're here to do, and that's to keep the peace.
Now, there seemed to be a lot of people that were going down there celebrating after those troops had moved out. Is that a further indication that more and more people are now coming back into Dili?
There's no doubt about that, Hugh. The Defence Forces here and the humanitarian aid workers here say that more and more people feel safe to come back to Dili. We walked along the shoreline from where we are now to the dock this morning, and yesterday that was an area that was inhabited by thousands of refugees. Today there's barely anyone there. They've moved back to their homes. They feel safe enough now under the protection of the multinational forces to go back to their homes. They feel that the militias won't attack, won't retaliate, and they feel secure that they will be protected.
So what then will be the military priority over the next few days?
Well, this is just the beginning. We're looking at day 5 here, Hugh. There's a lot more work to be done before they can say that Dili is in fact secure. They've got to try and concentrate on the pockets of militia that still remain here, and there still are bound to be some. Today's exercises obviously will be certainly a warning to them that they can't remain and that they can't continue their activities. But it's a matter of expanding out from Dili into the countryside, moving west towards the border, and trying to ensure that those areas too are safe for the East Timorese people.
Okay, Simon, thanks again for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Hugh.
The Prime Minister has raised the prospect of bringing back national service to bolster our defence capacity, although Mr Howard doesn't believe it's needed yet. His comments come as the Defence Department is deluged with inquiries from potential recruits. Laurie Wilson has our report. The Indonesian government is to delay the introduction of a controversial security law after a second day of violent protests in Jakarta. 7 people have now died in the street battles. The latest, a youth shot near a university campus. More than 150 have been hospitalised. Riot police, some firing live rounds, clashed repeatedly with crowds of students enraged by the bill, which would have given more power to the military. The protesters fear it would allow the armed forces to use the East Timor crisis and other outbreaks to seize control of the country. Qantas's proud record for airline safety has been given a slight tarnish today. QF1 to London, sliding off the tarmac while landing at Bangkok. There were no serious injuries, but tense moments for more than 400 people on board, including the IOC's Deputy President, Kevin Gosper. After the break, the NASA space probe that's now just $200 million worth of stardust, and a typhoon slams into southern Japan.